Oh my gosh, the end of season 2 of Big Love is absolutely wild. There's so much going on.
Seriously, we've got Bill trying to convince his wives to be okay with him owning a gaming company, Alby straight up poisoning Roman, his dad, Sarah completely losing respect for her family, and Barb questioning if she even wants her kids raised in polygamy.
It's like every character is facing a breaking point, and we can't wait to break it all down. Let's get into it.
Hey everyone, and welcome back. My name is Sam.
And I'm Melissa.
I was raised in a family with 4 moms and 35 kids. We were members of the FLDS Church, which is a polygamous group run by their prophet, Warren Jeffs, who is now serving a life sentence in prison.
I was raised mainstream LDS in Utah. Sam and I have been married for 10 years. 5 years into our marriage, we stepped away from religion completely, and we have 2 awesome kiddos.
Yes, we do. We have so much to go over in Big Love today. Oh my gosh. There was so many different storylines and different things going on in these last 4 episodes that we had to break it down completely different than we normally do.
Yeah, normally we're able to do like a timeline and events and just kind of go through what events happened. There were like a million, bazillion, quadrillion, whatever number. Like as I was trying to take notes,
Biggest
I'm like,
number.
The biggest number you can think of. There were so many different threads to this web that has been created. And there were moments where I was like, I don't even know how we're keeping track of this at all. Like as a viewer, somehow you know about everything that's going on, but I don't even know how, because there was like 20 bazillion things that happened.
It was crazy. So what we're going to do is we're going to break it down by character.
Yes.
Because that's the only way we're going to be able to get as many details as possible without making a video that is 6 days long. So we're going to just try to start with the characters and just go through and kind of tie it all together based on that.
I can't believe in 4 episodes. During each of these episodes, after each episode was over, we were like, oh my gosh, we could have done a video off of each episode in this, but we also don't want the series to be like 40 videos long. So we will try to condense it. But the first person who is the quickest to talk about is Rhonda. She is still a thorn in everybody's side. She's still making Sarah's life miserable. She is blackmailing Heather.
Yeah. The last video we did, I tried to almost give her the benefit of the doubt.
We tried.
She's just the worst. Rhonda is just the worst. There's no excuse for the way that she is acting. Even if you come from a bad situation, I mean, there's no excuse to, especially once you learn that the outside world isn't what you thought it was. Mm-hmm. You need to change your attitude, girl. Change your attitude and be better, because she is just going crazy. She's willing to take advantage of anyone, blackmail anyone, make anyone look as bad as possible to get her own way.
And she's blackmailing Heather with something that we don't even know if it's true or not, right? But Heather knows that the idea of her looking at Sarah as more than friends in her Mormon community is not allowed and would not be okay in her family. So she's using a tool against her that, again, we don't even know. Heather's saying, no, I'm not, but she still knows that Rhonda's going to be believed above her, which is the frustrating part, and that's why Rhonda has the power. So It's so tough to see, and Heather and Sarah are trying to still have a friendship, but she's not allowed to be friends with Sarah because of everything going on in Sarah's family, and yet she's stuck living with Rhonda, who's manipulative and trying to blackmail her for something that may or may not even be true.
Yeah.
Right?
It's a mess. It's a big, big mess, because we have Heather's mom, who is basically not even believing what Heather is saying, because Rhonda is over here lying and making up all of these stories. So it's just causing a big issue between all of the families that are involved with Rhonda.
Yeah. Next would be Sarah. Sarah's trying to hang on to her friendship. She's trying to hold on to her boyfriend, who is much older than her and who is seeing other girls because he doesn't want to be celibate and he doesn't want to push Sarah, right? Any other person that isn't in the situation that Sarah's in her family would run away and be like, well, if you can't be loyal to just me, then I'm going to dart out of it. But because of the family that she's being raised in, she's like, this kind of jealousy, well, maybe I can get through the jealousy, because that's what she's watching all of her mothers, especially her mom, Barb, go through, that women are supposed to just get through their jealousy and that it'll be okay. And she still cares about him. And so she's putting herself into a situation that is so sad and harmful to her. And she doesn't even, I think she sees it and she doesn't see it because of her situation with her family.
Yeah, she is clearly conflicted. She doesn't believe in the principle herself, but she is with her family that she loves and is trying to support. But at the same time, she doesn't feel that she can go to her parents and talk about anything because they don't have any credibility in her mind.
Yeah.
Because her dad's sleeping with multiple women. Of course, he looks at it differently, but from her view, it's the same thing. Like, she even spoke with her other mother, Nikki, and said, how do you do it? How can you deal with the jealousy of your husband being with multiple partners? She just doesn't understand how someone could deal with that. And yet she's seeing her parents doing it right before her eyes.
And so then she decides that she's going to try it. Nikki's like, well, that's for a higher purpose, so it's okay. You don't have a higher purpose, so you should drop him. But because of that example, she still chooses and wants to stay with her boyfriend through it, right? And towards the end of the season, it seems like she's going to start sleeping with her boyfriend, which again is so sad because it's a product of her circumstance of feeling like that's how she's not going to lose him. And yeah, I hope, it's just watching her whole situation is so sad. And then you have Ben over here, who's the opposite. Sarah's telling her father to his face, you know that you have no credibility and I would never take relationship advice from you ever for the rest of my life. Like, I won't take any advice from you. Which you could see really hurt Bill, but it also makes sense why she would feel that way. So she's over here saying, I'm not LDS anymore at all, so maybe it doesn't matter if I sleep with my boyfriend. And then you have Ben, who now is all in on... what did Sarah call it? The Church of Bill. Is all in on the Church of Bill and now holds the priesthood that Bill gave him and is saying, you know what? No, I think polygamy is going to be a fine thing. Oh, you know what? I'm actually going to have twin girlfriends that want to be sister wives. They want to be sisters in real life and in the next. And yeah.
Yeah, it's hard to tell if Ben is just trying to get back at his mom for basically splitting him and his girlfriend up. And so he's angry, and so he's trying to get back at his mom, or if he actually is starting to believe in the principle. It's hard to tell because there are moments where it seems like he's just going for this revenge. I'm going to make my mom angry and sick inside because I'm going to just, date multiple girls at the same time and all of these things that he knows his mom will not approve of.
Yeah.
But then he tells his sister, Sarah, that he actually believes in what his dad is doing. So it's kind of confusing a little bit with Ben right now.
I think he's confused as well, right? But he is definitely hitting the nail on the head when it comes to driving Barb crazy. Because you see in the rest of the season, Barb has always struggled, you can see from season 1, about the idea of being in plural marriage and kind of how she got into it and everything to begin with. But then she's watching her kids go through this and she's like, I don't think this is what I want for my kids. So much so that she's willing to conspire with her mom and try to force Ben to go with his grandmother and spend time there and be raised mainstream LDS so that hopefully he can get this polygamy thing out of his head. So she doesn't want her kids raised in it, and yet she's raising her kids in it.
I think that she wished that she could go back and say no to Bill when the second wife idea came along. Now, maybe it wasn't her decision. Maybe Bill forced it on her, right? And her only option was lose Bill or have a sister wife. Maybe that's what the circumstances were. We haven't had the whole picture of that yet. But she clearly does not love her life as a polygamist.
No, she doesn't like the secrets.
So I think that she looks at that life she has and says, I don't want this for my own kids. But keep in mind, this whole plan to send Ben, her son, off with her mom was kind of crazy because she doesn't even have a relationship with her mom. Her mom disowned her when she decided to go live polygamy. And so she's willing to basically give her son to a mom that won't even talk to her over allowing him to be a part of this polygamy idea.
Yeah.
So that says a lot about where Barb is with the polygamist lifestyle.
Yeah, and it's crazy. During just the wedding, like her taking her kids to her mom's wedding and all the stuff that was happening in that wedding, I was like, we could have made a whole episode off of the way that the mainstream church views polygamy. Her mom said, you're my daughter. It's my job. Like, I have to protect your eternal salvation. It's my responsibility. And that's something that is taught within Mormonism, that as a parent, it's your job to raise your children in righteousness and to make sure that they stay on the correct path. And that if you don't, like, you're a failure as a parent if you don't keep them in the church doing what they're supposed to be doing. So obviously her mom's feeling these feelings of shame that she's not a good enough mother so that Barb went there. And then also having concern for her grandkids, but not willing to have a relationship. I mean, she talks about the fact that she was progressive enough to have, I think it was like her aunt or something that was lesbian.
Yes.
She's like, I even had, homosexuals at my home before we were allowed to in the church, which was a thing to where when someone would come out of the closet, they would have to be ostracized and pushed aside. And people, I remember even in the early 2000s, I remember there being a family in my ward that went and asked permission from the bishop to go to their gay son's wedding.
Oh,
They
wow.
went and asked permission from the church because there is a temple recommend interview question that asks if you're associated with anybody who stands against the church.
Or stands against the teachings of the church.
Stands against the teachings of the church. And they were worried about that. So they actually went to church leadership. Things, luckily, I think over the last 10, 15 years have gotten a lot better in that respect. But where this was filmed in the early 2000s, it's like, okay, that was totally a thing. And the fact that her mom was like, I was doing that before it was really even allowed, that was also a thing. Which is why Heather's so scared as well, right? That Rhonda's going to say something about her being homosexual because of what a big stance the LDS Church has against that.
Yeah, it could destroy the relationship she has with her own parents. It could be a very, very big deal. And the relationship she has with her church. Another interesting thing that they brought up at the wedding was the fact that Barb's dad passed away. And her mom went to get remarried, but in order to get sealed in the temple with another man, she had to
be unsealed from her first husband.
Unsealed from her first husband, which of course that would make Barb very upset because she was planning on being together forever as a family in the next life. And if you get unsealed, that's basically saying, I choose someone else for the afterlife, and so I'm going to unseal myself to you.
Well, and they said that the guy that she was marrying, he was a widower, but a man is allowed to be sealed to more than one wife in the eternities because even within the mainstream LDS Church, they still believe that the practice of polygamy can happen in the afterlife. So her new husband was still going to be sealed to his old wife and would also be sealed to Barb's mom and asked that of Barb's mom to be sealed to him. But her choosing to do that, a lot of times when people get remarried or married and both of them are widows and widowers in the church later in life, a lot of times they'll keep their previous sealings and they'll just get married for time only.
Right.
Is what they call it. But in this case, the fact that he wanted her to be sealed, now basically Barb's mom is also going to be a polygamist in the afterlife.
Which is so crazy because here she is so upset about polygamy. She won't even have this relationship with her daughter because she hates polygamy so much. Yet she is agreeing to polygamy for all eternity. What?
And that's what Barb is saying. Barb's like, okay, so you'll be nice to these other people. You'll be progressive and allow these other people into your home that don't follow church standards, but you won't allow me as your daughter, right? So that was so messy. You also hear even young kids saying, oh, are you going to have to be rebaptized for your apostasy? Now, that type of language is so common that the fact that a 12 or 13-year-old girl would say that is not uncommon at all.
Not surprising.
I could totally have seen myself at her age being like, oh, so how's that going to work? You've been in apostasy and you're choosing this, but now do you get rebaptized? How do you gain your fellowship again? We're welcome to have you back in the fold. All of those type of wordings are very common.
Yeah, unfortunately, that would be something that they wouldn't even look at as maybe, hey, this could be disrespectful to ask something like this. They just look at it, well, congratulations on giving up your sinful life. What's the next step? Are you going to get rebaptized? Not even realizing how upsetting that could sound to someone.
Yeah.
Because Barb isn't giving up her life, but yet they just assume that they have the one right, the one truth, the one good way of living, and everyone else, needs to live the same way or they're just going to be miserable and unhappy.
And Barb continues to be torn, right? Because she's dealing with the fact that she doesn't want her kids to be in it, but they are being raised in it. Yep. She's also a lot in this season dealing with the struggles of where she always felt like Bill put her first. She even said that to Bill, I have to be first wife. I have to be your first. And Bill's like, yeah, of course you are. But she's seeing that kind of erode with certain issues, with certain things happening in the family where she becomes the last to know instead of the first to know, or things start equaling out between the wives instead of it being Barb first boss lady, having that specific first wife role, especially when it came to Weber Gaming.
Yeah, Weber Gaming is a huge topic throughout this entire episode. Weber Gaming is ultimately what got Roman shot at the end of last season, and it bleeds into this next season quite a bit and talks about there's just this huge conflict between Bill and his wives.
Because the wives finally know what's happening. Bill's already bought it, and now he has to pretend like it's a new item when it's not because he didn't tell them about it.
But something that we need to point out here is that when he first mentioned it to Barb, he took her golfing, and then he was like, hey, I need to get your, what did he say? Your thoughts?
Yeah,
he made it opinion, your advice. I think he tried to make it sound like it was, up to her. I need to get your advice on something. And he talked about Weber Gaming, and she said, well, geez, she was kind of shocked by it. But then she asked, well, have you talked to anyone else? And he said, no, you're the first one, of course, which was a lie because he'd already talked to Nikki. And when Barb thought that she was the first one to know, she seemed happy that he came to her first, and she seemed like she was going to be okay with it until she found out that Nikki knew before she did, and then suddenly the Weber Gaming idea was the worst idea in the world.
Yeah, and it definitely caused like a huge divide, right? Because then you have where she's not comfortable with it. Bill tries to take them all to go and gamble and see how they like it. Nikki gets hooked on bingo, which I think is hilarious because I like bingo. Yeah. I was like, oh, I can relate with that. But so you're watching them all try it, and Barb is just like, absolutely not. This is not for me. I don't think this is moral. This is what we should do. Whether it's influenced by the fact that she was raised Mormon, where it's super looked down on to gamble, or a combination of her not wanting to be the last wife or the last one to know something. So then Margie goes, well, I'll take over. Like, I'll do this. I have no moral problems with it at all. She wasn't raised Mormon at all. So she's like, oh, okay, well, I can be the Weber Gaming wife, and I can help make the decisions, and I can go to Wendover. And Wendover was a disaster because Bill ends up running into people who know Barb as his wife.
Who are... or
Mormons, yeah.
they still currently are Mormon, yes. And so he tried to hide that and basically lied to them about, because the whole idea was that he was going to go to Wendover and introduce Margie as his wife. And this was going to be
open.
This was going to be the first time they're wide open. Nothing matters. We're in this gaming industry. No one will be here that we care about knowing about our polygamous lifestyle. And then he's all excited and promises this and starts lying right in front of Margie, saying that, oh, she's just my secretary. Yes. So then, of course, Margie is completely devastated and upset, and Bill has to call Barb and ask her to come to Wendover after the fact to keep his image of, oh, no, she's my wife, and then Margie's my secretary.
Yeah, and I think during the Wendover stuff, it was just showing Barb obviously being first wife and being the one to be public in appearances. Nikki keeps saying that she just doesn't think Margie's even capable of it, and that it's better to have Barb be the image of the family, which is one piece of it. But also you're seeing him use his wives manipulatively in whatever way is going to help make him look the best. Right? So it's like, okay, yeah, Margie, I'll let you have this. That'll be great. I'll get to show you off in public. Oh, unless it doesn't work. In that case, like, I got to hide you and shove you in the closet again. And then I'll pull out my wife that everybody knows and loves as my wife. So it's a lot of this, like, him using his wives however he needs, and they're all getting sick of it, right?
Yeah.
Margie's getting sick of being third wife and not having anybody on her side, and that her vote kind of counts when it's a tiebreaker, but other than that, she's just told what she's supposed to believe and what she's supposed to do. You see Barb, who's getting sick of always having to be the person in front of everyone and cover up any of Bill's mistakes.
Basically, clean up all the messes.
And then Nikki is finding out more and more that Bill's keeping stuff from her and working behind her back against her father and against her family in Juniper Creek. And she's getting tired of that too. So you have all these different wives that are just like being used however Bill needs them at that moment.
How many times throughout the season did we look at each other and say, oh, Barb is going to crack. She's going to lose it.
I think there's going to be a point, and I know we're only end of season 2. I think there's going to be a point when Barb actually does leave.
So that's what I thought.
That's my prediction.
That's what I thought, and maybe it still does happen. But towards the end of this season, Barb actually seemed to step up and finally say, you know what? I'm going full steam ahead with Bill, and we're doing this. She even walked across the street and told her neighbors that they are living polygamy. And this is a huge secret throughout this entire season, or yes, the whole series, that they're trying to keep hidden from their neighbors. They lie about everything to keep it hidden from their neighbors. And then finally, Barb says, nope, I am going to I'm full steam ahead. Polygamy with my husband and sister wives.
Yes, to keep Margie from being a surrogate, though. I think Barb was doing it to clean up Margie's mess because Margie had promised to be a surrogate for the neighbors because she's pretending to be a surrogate now instead of admitting that she's a plural wife. And as Margie starts bringing back, Margie's obviously looking for friendship that she's not getting from her sister wives. And she's completely closed off and stuck in this closet, right? Mm-hmm. So she has the neighbor friend who she's had to lie to about things and what gets her in the surrogacy mess. And then she brings back Anna, right, from the diner. The waitress that Bill had dated and is trying to be friends with her and bring her in. And you can tell that she's definitely fishing for Anna to be the fourth wife because she wants to have an ally. She wants to have a friend. She wants to have someone that's going to be on her side. And I think that's what's going to push Barb over the edge. Because Barb did the announcing thing purely out of self-interest of getting Margie out of the surrogacy mess. And I think she told Bill, I will not have a fourth wife. And he's like, well, we'll see. And she's like, nope, I will not have a fourth wife.
Yeah, she did say that. And I think you're right. I think it was self-interest for the, telling everyone. But the fact that she's openly saying it now says, that she's willing to admit it openly now. Yeah. Which I would... who knows? But yes, I think you're right. If Anna and Bill decide that they want to get married,
which they're making out in the closet at the very end of the season,
it's leading us to believe that it's going that direction, that there will be a fourth wife, and whether or not Barb stays, she's already left for multiple days because she was frustrated about something. Mm-hmm. The other wives, Nikki and Margine, are constantly saying how worried they are that she will leave the family. It could happen.
Yeah, and Nikki is torn between these two worlds still, right?
Yep.
So she wouldn't be against a fourth wife because there's the higher purpose, but she's still torn between Juniper Creek and her loyalty to her family and the loyalty to this family. I mean, she said, she's like, I've given up so much to be a part of this family. I've been giving up so much. Bill, you need to give something up too. You need to give up this gaming. You need to give it back. This is getting ridiculous because she keeps finding out things. I can't believe that we are this far into the video and now just barely starting to talk about what's going on with Alby and Roman. But she's finding out from Alby all these things about Bill and all the horrible things Bill's been doing to try to gain power in Juniper Creek and to take power away from Roman, how he might be partly responsible. He did not call the hit on Roman, but he pitted those two against each other to try to implode each other on purpose and to fight and start an all-out war, is what he had said before. And then it did happen. So Roman's on his deathbed fighting for his life from being shot. He's going to recover, and Alby starts poisoning him.
Yeah. Before we get into Alby and the craziness going on in Juniper Creek, I do want to point out with Nikki, yes, she is finding out all of this information about what Bill was doing without her knowing it and the fighting with Juniper Creek and all of that. However, Nikki is not innocent. She is very, very far from innocent. She is...
So manipulative.
So manipulative. And the whole reason that she tried to get Bill to sell the company back to Juniper Creek was for her own self-interest.
It's true.
Because Alby basically reached out and said that you have to do this. And so she was trying to...
You have to do this because I know that you stole $60,000 and that's what you're using for your bingo money and to throw parties.
Yes.
And do all sorts of other stuff.
Yes, exactly. Because we know that Nikki has no problem with gambling. Whatever she can do to get more money to feed her shopaholic addictive personality, she'll do whatever she can do. So we know that even though her teachings would say where she was raised, you cannot gamble, she doesn't care. She just does whatever she wants to do to make that money. Anyway, so yeah, she stole $68,000, something like that, from the UEB trust, from her own people. Just so
tithing money.
Yeah, they're tithing money so that she could have this money to feed her addiction. So, yeah, she is not innocent at all.
No, she's not. She's been working behind Bill's back and forth with Alby because she's never willing to admit when she's wrong or she's made a mistake or when she's gotten in too deep. Alby is pushing his dad out, trying to actually just kill him by having him at home and having him poisoned. Finally, their mom, Alby and Nikki's mom, brings him to the Henriksons. So you have quite the mess going on in the Henriksen home. You've got Roman Grant on his deathbed. They're trying to bring him back to life, basically, even though Bill wishes he was dead. Lois, Bill's mom, wishes he was dead so much that she's trying to convince Wanda to poison him, because we find out more and more that Lois is behind all of these poisonings, except for Alby. But
Lois is officially the worst.
Yeah, she's
both of
Wanda.
Bill's parents are the worst. Frank and Lois are the worst.
Yeah.
And that is my official opinion of this season. That those two individuals are so. It's no wonder that Bill is the way he is.
Yeah.
And that he's so constantly willing to get himself into these big messes to get his own way, because just look at his parents.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, so you have all that going on, and Lois is coming trying to get Wanda to poison Roman while he's there, and Nikki's trying to nurse him back to health with her mom in the same, not the exact same house, but in the same homes. You have Wanda and Joey and Kathy, who are hiding out because Alby wants to give Kathy to Frank as a wife, because Frank is trying to get back at his son. So he's trying to take who is supposed to be Joey's second wife for himself. Again, power move, disgusting. Frank is the worst. And all of this time, Alby is trying to prove to the people of Juniper Creek that when his father passes away, that he's going to be the next leader.
The way that he went about this was...
Oh, this scene.
Okay, there is a lot to talk about this. So, I want to start off by just saying that in Short Creek, with Warren Jeffs, who is basically the same as Alby in this specific instance, when his father, Rulon Jeffs, was passing away, Warren Jeffs was doing similar things, trying to get the community to be on his side so that he could take over when his father died.
And limiting the contact that people could have with his father, too,
Limiting the contact, wouldn't allow, and they did the same thing, wouldn't allow people to talk to his father at all. And then he called for a testimony meeting, just like they did in the show. Alby called for a testimony meeting, asking for people to stand up and bear their testimony about the fact that he should be the next prophet. And that is one of the big ways that the FLDS people followed Warren Jeffs, is because of this testimony meeting. People standing up and saying that they saw, and Alby's mom even did this. She was a witness. She said, I saw the face of, as I looked at my son Alby, I saw the face of Roman Grant, and then these other prophets, and then all the way back to Joseph Smith, and then it switched back to the face of my son. So I knew that he was supposed to be the next prophet.
Yes, and wasn't it Warren Jeff's mom was the first person to bear testimony that he was supposed to be the prophet?
I don't remember if it was his mom or one of his
sister.
wives or something.
It
was a woman, though.
It was
I know
a woman.
that.
I want to say, and don't quote me on this, but I feel like when it was Alby's mom, I remember thinking, I'm pretty sure it was one of Warren's mothers
Maybe it was
who
his
also
own
testified
mother.
as well.
Yeah, it very likely
So
could have
that
been.
was a tip at Warren Jeffs. And then also the fact that as he was giving revelation, Alby was giving revelation, he was looking into a hat, and that is them pointing to Joseph Smith, who used a seer stone in a top hat to look into, and words would light up, and that is how he translated most of the Book of Mormon. Okay, so that's where, when you're like, where did the hat thing come from? That came from Joseph Smith. So they were pulling a lot of numbers. And then the fact that his mom said, I saw the face of Joseph Smith right after he'd had these revelations from looking into a dark hat. There's a lot of,
oh my goodness,
a lot of things there.
So much. I don't recall ever hearing that Warren Jeffs looked into a hat, but once again, this show is very good at pulling pieces and parts from so many different groups, and that's why it's fiction, is because it didn't happen like they're showing it, but all of the things they are showing, maybe not all, but a lot of them are true events that did happen, just a little bit differently or with different people. But yes, the hat thing, it's interesting because if you're raised in Mormonism, then you see a hat and you say, oh, if someone is looking into a hat, you think of Joseph Smith translating the Book of Mormon.
Yeah.
So they showed this scene of Alby walking up to, after his father was in the hospital and they thought that he was going to die, he walked over to his father's desk, Roman's desk, and saw his hat sitting there. And his hat was upside down. And he walked up and he looked down into the hat and he got this smirk on his face. He got this idea, right? Oh, ha, ha, I'm going to use this. And before it ever showed the scene of him, so quote unquote, having these revelations by looking into a hat, I even said, I'm like, well, just put some stones in there and you can have revelation. And I wasn't meaning it seriously, and I don't mean any disrespect, but that was the first thought that came to my mind.
I said that's what Alby was going to be thinking.
Because of the way that I was raised in Mormonism. So anyway, it was just, I couldn't believe it when he started they would ask him a question, and then he would look into the hat, and then he would say, and he would kind of have this glossy look over his eyes, and he would mumble some words, of course, the words that would work with his own agenda. And then he would even say, wait, what did I just say? Pretending like he was speaking for God. Classic Warren Jeffs move there as well. So it was disturbing. I did not like the scene. It was actually very uncomfortable to watch.
Yeah, it was. And now at this point, at the end of the season, we're seeing that Alby pretty much has control. He was just voted the head of the UEB Council. He talked to Hollis, and he now knows that Bill was directly or indirectly the one who created this mess. He knows Bill has Weber Gaming. He knows that Bill was trying to cause a war between the Greens and the Grants. He, goes and leaves snakes in Bill's bed. He goes and has basically issued a warning to Bill that he is going to be in deep trouble for everything that's happened.
Bill was hoping to keep Roman in his house long enough to fill Roman's seat with a government official of some kind, to fill the seat of the UEB trust.
Yep.
So that then Roman wouldn't have any kind of power when he did go back to the compound.
Yeah.
That was the hope. But then, of course, Alby went and had different plans.
And when he got that power, basically Bill realized, okay, well, maybe it's better for Roman to be in charge than Alby, or he knew it was because Alby's always been a little crazy and unhinged. So he sends Roman back, and what do you know? Alby has police waiting to arrest Roman for polygamous crimes, for taking girls across state lines to go into marriages and all these things that the state would have loved to go after Roman for in the first place. Alby was like, okay, now's the time. I'll lead them to my father so that he can be caught for all of these crimes.
Yeah. So he completely stabbed his own family in the back, including his own mother.
Yeah.
And so, yikes. This is turning into a whole new storyline on what's going to happen to Juniper Creek. Now Alby's in charge. He has his father's seat at the trust.
He knows what Bill did.
And I do want to point out as well, the only reason, just to kind of point out that Bill is not a good person either.
Yeah.
The only reason Bill sent Roman back is because he agreed they had this agreement that Roman was going to let him keep Weber Gaming, which Alby promised Bill that he was going to take it back somehow. So Bill, once again, it was his own agenda, trying to hold on to this thing that has been creating nothing but problems for his family.
Yeah, and he's so determined that somehow this is going to be, nobody cares. He even used it as his one vice that made him at the table in Wendover, right? That's his vice, is being a polygamist, not drinking or smoking or anything like that. And so he's trying to go into this world that they really have no place in being in, because it's just not the same world. And so watching him try to hold on, and there's been so many times, Bill frustrates me so much, because there's been so many times where he could have let it go. He could have let them have Weber Gaming and not been trying to hold this power, which again, I think is the reason why I think he's going to try to do whatever Bill wants to do, Bill will do. And he'll try to pretend like it's for other reasons besides his own vengeance, besides his own lust, besides whatever he wants selfishly. And he tries to make it sound like it's for the bigger good, the greater good, when really it isn't. It's all him.
No, and we have to remember too, go back a season when the Weber Gaming first came up. Bill wasn't that interested at first. You want to know what interested him? when he found out that Roman wanted the gaming business. Then all of a sudden, he had to have it. So Bill's the worst as well. There are so many people that are the worst in this season. Anyway, it gets frustrating when Bill pretends to be this good person that's always looking out for his family, but will put his family in harm's way time and time again just to get what he wants.
Yes. So, dang, season 2 is over. I cannot believe how much craziness, where we're at this point, and we're only 2 seasons in. I'm like, there's 5 seasons of this?
What else could possibly happen? I know all of you that have seen it are laughing at me right now because we have not seen anything beyond season 2, but I just am.
We're floored. There are moments where we just paused and I'm like, I don't even know how to keep track of all of this or like how to talk about it.
So much going on. There was one specific, I think it was the episode before last, where we watched that one episode and thought, okay, we could literally do an entire video just on this, but ultimately we don't want to be doing this, reviewing this show for the rest of our lives. So it is crazy how much they shoved into this one season, though. It was packed.
Yes, we're excited to see what happens in season 3. We are definitely hooked, just like all of you. And we'll be back at it again next week with the beginning of season 3.
Yes, let us know what you all think about whether or not you believe that Anna will be joining the family. Leave in the comments below. It sure seems that way, but once again, if you haven't seen the whole show, let us know what you think. We're right there with you. I personally believe that she will be joining the family, but I
think so too.
That could also mean that Barb would leave the family. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah. Thank you all for watching.
Thank you all so much. We'll talk to you soon.
Talk to y'all soon.